via pahumanities.org on the web. I'm sure you'll find something you like.
You know, the humanities really are the key to unlocking the door to the things that we're passionate about, things like our own local history. So what do you say we hear some more now from Dr. Josephine Dunn?
Okay. I've discussed individual women, lost and found, in the history of Scranton's women, but there's also the topic of women's initiatives, actions taken by groups of women that shaped and continue to shape the region today. Let's begin with the Women's Club movement that flourished in America from the 1860s forward. While this movement has been studied very well, very amply, throughout the United States, little work has been done on the movement in Pennsylvania, let alone the northeastern reaches of our state. In our region, women's clubs were found for many reasons. At first, primarily for education and self-improvement. An example of this type of club was the Fortnightly Club that met in Scranton on Friday afternoons, primarily to discuss literature. By constitution, many women's clubs like this one were restricted to a membership of 20 to 30 women. They maintained long waiting lists. Clubs similar to Scranton's Fortnightly Club existed, for example, in Carbondale, the New Century Club, founded in 1897, and the Carbondale News Club, founded in 1915, that continues to meet and will celebrate its 100th anniversary in 2015. Other women's clubs focused less on self-education and more on civic action and philanthropy. In Scranton, the most progressive women's organization was the City Improvement Association, founded in 1908 by Louise Dimmick, whom you see here, and 100 like-minded women. Faced with dramatic rises in population that had brought rapid construction of tenements and factories, Louise's ladies set out about advocating creation of a city beautiful. They took their cue from Honesdale, where an active municipal uplift group under Caroline Peterson had brought the Maple City to statewide attention. Louise's ladies invited one of the premier city planners of early 20th century America to Scranton, John Nolan. Nolan's recommendations called for redesigning the city for the future. The Scranton Plan became the Women's Action Plan. And largely due to their persistence, the city established its first city planning commission in 1913. Nolan had recommended that no realtors be appointed to the board, but that is what happened, much to Louise's disappointment. She'd hoped to see a woman from the City Improvement Association placed on the commission. The All-Woman College Club of Scranton began as a typical self-improvement club in 1906, but by 1908 had decided to reform social conditions in the city. Yearbooks and news features recount the story of club founder Carolyn Patterson Sickler, who was seeing children being left alone at home daily by their working mothers. Carolyn inspired the club to establish Scranton's first day nursery, 1910. Club members purchased a building, obtained donations of furniture and toys, prepared food, and ran a club for 10 years before resigning its administration. That day nursery, seen in this drawing by local architect George M.D. Lewis, that operates still on Jefferson Avenue today, is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. And Carolyn's initiative remains as viable today as it was in 1910. The Ladies of the Century Club of Scranton, founded in 1911, advocated school and prison reform, child and women labor laws, pure food laws, municipal integrity and reorganization of the city's charitable organizations. Women's history in Scranton is closely bound to the initiatives of this club, which fortunately has preserved all of its early archives. The Century Club will celebrate its 100th anniversary in 2011. Now, you might be thinking at this point, well, all well and fine for Lackawanna history or Scranton history, but why should we bother researching local women? How important can they really be? Remember this, please. Local history is the warp of national history's woof. Myriads of local histories constitute the national story. Take, for example, the suffrage story in America. Most of our school children recognize the names of Alice Paul and Carrie Chapman Catt as the suffrage story in America. But how many Pennsylvania students know the name of Kate Ryan Chapman, Pennsylvania's suffrage hero? Kate was a one-woman hurricane, a powerful voice for women's suffrage in Lackawanna County. Yet women in Scranton know nothing of her. But all women in Pennsylvania should honor her, and I'll tell you why. In 1910, the Scranton Times reported, quote, "If there are any suffragettes in Scranton, they are very slow to express themselves," unquote. 2 years later, Chapman had single-handedly turned the Scranton suffrage story around. In founding the Lackawanna County Equal Franchise League in January 1913, she began a well-orchestrated local campaign for the vote. Her organization quickly became the nucleus for all suffrage activity in northeastern Pennsylvania. From 12 members in 1913, her league had grown to 4,690 members 1 year later. The suffrage movement was alive and well in northeastern Pennsylvania. One of Kate's activist strategies was street speaking to advocate suffrage, but her first attempt to organize speakers was very unsuccessful. No woman could be found in all of Scranton who would, or even knew how to, make a real 30-minute speech. Eventually, Kate prevailed upon 4 women to speak, each for 5 minutes. And she boasted later, now this added up to a good-sized speech. By 1915, fear of speaking in the public domain before audiences of unknown political persuasion was overcome, and women were speaking throughout Scranton at rallies and in churches and movie theaters. But here is Kate Chapman's greatest gift to the women of Pennsylvania. In 1913, the Pennsylvania Senate was voting on a bill authorizing amendment of the U.S. Constitution to give women the right to vote. Pennsylvania suffragists attended all sessions, lobbying fiercely, as this newspaper cartoon reports. Twice, the senatorial vote resulted in a tie. Twice, the lieutenant governor broke that tie, thereby postponing the final vote. At this point in the drama, Lackawanna County Senator Walter McNichols vehemently declared his anti-suffrage stance and his intention to vote the bill down because that was what his county wanted. Well, that was all Kate Chapman needed to hear. In record time, she circulated a petition that garnered 1,000 votes and obtained the endorsement of the Central Labor Union, representing 70,000 workers in northeastern Pennsylvania. Not just 70,000 workers, 70,000 men. She made her way to Harrisburg, placed both documents in Senator McNichols' hands, and personally delivered the voice of Lackawanna County. McNichols, as seen in this cartoon, beset by suffragists and press, yielded, changing his vote from nay to aye. the tie was broken, and Pennsylvania stood tall for an amendment to the Constitution. Go, Kate. Kate Chapman's role in swinging the suffrage vote in the Pennsylvania Senate led to her election as vice president of the Pennsylvania Women's Suffrage Association in 1914, and to selection of Scranton as site for the association's annual convention. Women throughout the state gathered in Scranton's Hotel Casey to plan suffrage strategy for 1915. Kate Chapman presided at what women were calling the campaign convention and inspired delegates with the rally of her keynote address. She said, "We must organize, agitate, and educate if we hope to win." The convention was not without drama, supplied by local anti-suffragists. They illicitly replaced yellow suffrage roses in the lobby with their symbolic flower, the red rose, and were promptly jailed for the misdeed. Most students in Pennsylvania learn the suffrage story at the national level. But see how important Kate Chapman is to Pennsylvania? Knowing the story in Scranton clearly demonstrates, I think, the pivotal role women in small towns can and did play for state and ultimately national history. There's no state history without local histories. There's no local history without women's history. And there's no national history without either. One young Scranton girl, age 16, begged her father to allow her to take the train alone to Harrisburg in order to picket for women's suffrage. Her father, Judge Warren, said yes. Many fathers would not have agreed in 1900. And this is how young Marjorie Warren Scranton began a lifetime career as political activist. Suffragette Marjorie drove her automobile throughout the state, stumping for suffrage. She was one of a brigade of 8 cars known as the Flying Squadron, a small fleet of automobiles driven by women on a mission. Imagine that in 1914. After passage of the 19th Amendment, Marjorie exchanged suffrage for partisan politics and became Lackawanna County's first Republican county chairwoman. In time, Marjorie became a state representative committee member and treasurer of the Pennsylvania Council of Republican Women. In 1928, she was elected National Committee Woman from Pennsylvania, a post she retained through 1951. Her commitment to the Commonwealth was recognized in 1953 when she was declared Distinguished Daughter of the Commonwealth. Marjorie died in 1960, the year during which her only son, William Warren, whom she's bouncing on her knee here, was inaugurated as Pennsylvania's 38th governor, and so the torch was passed from mother to son. Marjorie played an important role in the state suffrage story, but also women in child labor reform and the history of emerging women in Pennsylvania politics after 1920. Yet there is no book or scholarly paper written about her. I hope, however, that she will be well known to the next generation of Pennsylvania's political women. Kate Chapman knew this grand, diminutive lady, Dr. Anna Callista Clark, homeopathic physician and suffragist. From the moment she arrived in Scranton from Athens, PA in 1893, Clark's life revolved around women's issues, from health to education to politics. She led a group of young suffragists known as the Flying Squadron of Street Orators. They were into flying squadrons in those days. She also became one of Kate Chapman's itinerant instructors in the Women's League for Political Education. She traveled between Carbondale and Wilkes-Barre, no mean feat in those